Previously on Libel the Bible.
Moses and Aaron ask Pharaoh to set the Israelites free.
Pharaoh accuses the Israelites of being lazy and increases their workload.
The Lord tells Moses that he'll use extreme measures to free the Israelites.
God turns the Nile into blood.
God unleashes frogs, gnats, and flies upon the Egyptians.
Pharaoh's heart continues to be hardened by God and will not let the Israelites go.
And now, episode 14 of Libel the Bible.
Nothing matters.
Hey everybody, I'm Rusty.
I'm Scott.
Welcome
Wait,
to Libel.
is that the way it is?
Tonight it might as well be.
All right, I'm Rusty.
I'm Scott. We're getting a little bit of a late start in the recording studio because, Rusty felt the need to correct a lot of my actions again and school me on some of the finer arts of acting, podcasting, word pronunciation, everything I do wrong.
I mean, it's an ongoing process.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm moldable. I was just a chunk of clay when you got here, but now look at us. Now look at us, by the way. We got a milestone to celebrate.
What's the milestone?
1,000 listens.
Oh, shit. 1,000 listens.
Didn't you tell me that, we qualify once you reach 1,000 listeners to, get 10 cents for an ad if you read it on air or something?
No, it was a lot less than that. It was a lot less listens. It was 50 listens. We have actually in our Anchor app, we have the option of setting up ads.
So we could have made dozens of cents.
We could have made $10, or after 1,000 listens, we would have had $10.
So, wow. So it took us how many months to get $10?
10 weeks.
10 weeks to get $10.
To get 1,000 listens to earn the $10, yes.
And we didn't move on that. So maybe, they say the best time to start is yesterday. The second best time to start is today. So maybe we need to look into that. Listen, when you're on Skid Row, man, that $10 will make a difference.
So here's the thing. Before we get any further into this discussion, because we're having this discussion, I want to bring something up. I meant asking you. So I saw a Twitter post where the person was advising podcasters, when the show starts, don't ramble about your personal shit. Nobody wants to hear that. People want to hear the content. Get right into the content. I made a comment. Yeah. I see you want to interrupt, and that was good. You didn't. I applaud you. I saw your whole face contorted. You were about to say something, and I saw you stop yourself. So I'm going to give you a little treat now. Positive reinforcement. So I made the counterpoint. I tweeted out that, one size does not fit all, that there are literally tens of millions of podcast listeners, and for every one podcast listener that wants to dive right into the content, there's another one who likes to hear the hosts of the show being engaging and talking about what's been going on for the week before they get into the show. Now, I'm not saying we're good at it. We are, but I'm not saying that. So I am saying that I think it matters who the hosts are, what the theme of the show is. So what do you feel? Do you feel like we benefit from this kind of banter in the beginning of the show? Or, because in editing, I have cut out a decent amount of our banter to get straight into the episode after about a minute and a half.
Do you find yourself cutting out more of your banter or more of my banter?
No, it's just back and forth banter that I cut out.
I guess you can't banter. There's no one side of a banter, right? So, I don't know. I think, do we banter about completely off-topic stuff? We're discussing podcast stuff right now. Maybe not with discussing the Bible, but discussing
right now,
the podcast.
Right now, it's a little bit of a meta conversation.
Yeah.
The meta being we're having a discussion about the philosophy of podcasting. We're not necessarily discussing the podcast itself.
Right. So it's still in universe. It's still.
I mean, we had like a whole discussion that I edited out about me playing Wordle, We had like a 5-minute conversation. Like I'm explaining the rules of Wordle. And it's like that I felt like, yeah, we don't need to have that.
Yeah, no, I don't think we should have you drone on about things that nobody cares about.
Well, it's not like it's in a vacuum. Like you're literally asking me about it. You're the one bringing it up.
There's no proof.
Here's what it is, Scott. I've realized the parts that I'm editing, it's you setting me up for failure. It's you bringing up some boring topic that nobody wants to talk about. And rather than, you know what? Now that I'm saying the words out loud, it might be my fault for not like condemning it on air. Like, why should I wait until next Sunday when I show up to record another episode and tell you all the shit you've done wrong when I could just do it like right there on air? Maybe I should start doing that, Scott.
Yeah, maybe. I really do not like the fact that you spend an entire week dwelling on shit and looking for stuff to attack. Yeah, if you don't point it out right away, I'm not even gonna. You know what? I'm not gonna even listen to your comments and criticisms anymore.
It's hard not to dwell on it when you're editing an episode and listening to your stupid shit over and over and over and over again. It's kind of like the first 3 times I'm laughing. It's like watching any movie. Like even with The Godfather, as great as The Godfather is, after you've seen it like 100 times, you start noticing all the little like nonsensical things that occur, because you've seen and analyzed it so much, you start picking up on the little flaws.
Yeah, I don't like that movie.
Well, with you, it takes about 2 or 3 listens, and then I start picking up on all your little flaws. So what do you think? So do you think like we've bantered enough now and people are like ready for the show? Or do you think they're enjoying this back and forth?
I don't know. I'm thinking I'm not enjoying this back and forth because this isn't back and forth. This is just you coming at me. Damn, dude. I don't know, man. Honestly, I only listen to a handful of podcasts myself. And I think with people that are just about the topic, it kind of bores me. After a while, I like to get to know the host. I like to feel like that.
Right.
Their sense of humor, their take on some things, and
right.
If I wanted to just if I just wanted to learn about the Bible, if I was somebody listening to this podcast, if I just wanted to learn about the Bible, I would just read it myself.
Right.
Wouldn't listen to these 2 jerks doing it.
I mean, what are you saying? We're not intellectuals.
I'm not saying that. No,
we don't have anything to contribute. Scott, don't be.
No, you're not.
Listen, I know I beat you down before every episode, but I also don't want you to discredit the strengths that you bring to the podcast.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't heard many of those from you.
Well, you're a good bouncing board for my thoughts.
or a punching bag for your thoughts.
Okay, that's another. I didn't want to be tactless, so I tried to soften the blow a little bit. Here's another change that we have today.
Wait. I will describe the change as I pour this glass of wine. Rusty feels I should not open a bottle of wine on air because I should already be inebriated before this stuff happens.
Well,
I like the slow progression through the hour.
In fairness, I'm not a big drinker.
Yeah,
but I smoke.
Yeah,
and before each episode, I like to smoke.
Okay,
so I feel like as I'm smoking and getting myself into the proper mental state to host this show, co-host this show. My bad. I'm sorry. Co-host.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I felt like
I'm just Andy Richter over here.
Scott should drink while I'm smoking so that we are both properly medicated when the show begins.
I'm not drinking this to be medicated. I'm drinking just to
sure you're
have
not,
a nice,
Scott.
relaxing
sure
Sunday
you're not.
Why?
Sure you're not.
So I think the real reason you don't want me doing it is because Rusty doesn't like sound drops and goofy stuff like we had early on in that one episode that I did. And I popped the bottle of wine open on the air, and it's almost like a drop. It's like a sound effect, and like we're just so above that. I mean, maybe he's above that, but I'm not above that.
Scott, let's be honest. If you were editing the podcast, you would edit out your own like wine pop and put in like a drop of a wine bottle popping.
But I can't do that now. So
episode 2. Go listen to everyone right now.
Right now.
Well, don't turn us off now. Finish listening to the episode for sure. But go and listen to episode 2. Episode 2, we decided, well, Scott decided he was going to add drops in that episode. He did a really good job. I mean, the drops were funny. Like, taken by themselves, the drops are good. So this is me praising you. The problem was, I forgot how long the episode was. It was like around an hour, about 59 minutes an hour. There were like more than 30 drops.
I don't know if there was more. It was like, there was a lot, though. There was a lot.
I counted it. And I divided the number of drops by minutes, and it was something like there was like a drop like 12 drops every like 2 or 3 minutes. It was crazy.
It was.
And on their own, the drops were funny. We edited down the drops, but there are still some drops up. You listened to the episode.
I just listened.
How many drops are there?
I decided to start building our website. So I'm going back to listen to the episodes, and there was probably a dozen left.
All right, so like a dozen drops in an hour episode. So go and listen to it and tell us what you think about the drops. Like, should we include drops? I'll actually, on Spotify, if you're listening right now on Spotify, I'll put up a question.
You can do that.
Yeah, you can put up a question. I have some questions up on other episodes, like 2 or 3 other episodes. No one's answered them. So I'll put up a question. Should we incorporate drops? And if you have an opportunity, give us an answer if you feel strongly about it one way or another. And let us know if we should have drops.
So were your questions you already posted not worth answering? Like, what was you think anyone's going to answer this question?
I don't know if
this is your first appeal.
I don't know if we have enough listeners on Spotify. You know what I mean? Like, so statistically, if you have like tens of thousands of listeners, 10, 15 of them will like answer a question. If you have like 40 Spotify listeners, like statistically, maybe they'll answer it if they even see it.
Okay.
You know, so right now we don't have as many listeners as we need, like numbers wise, to really engage.
Okay, that's fine enough. So we got two big questions now. Drops and whether me and you should just dive into content and not talk to each other.
That's good. So, yeah. So let's dive into the content.
Oh, okay. All right, but before we do that.
Yeah.
Before we do that, since I mentioned I was working on the website, I was putting vocabulary words on the website, more for me than the listeners or for you. But there was a whole debate about, remember the serpent from episode 1?
Sure.
Episode 2, the first part of Genesis.
What was the debate?
I know in my head I was like, is there a difference between a serpent and a snake? Because you had said snake and I had corrected you and said serpent. So I said, let me look up the definition. So a snake is any of numerous limbless, scaly, elongate reptiles of the suborder
Elongate
Serpentes.
or elongated?
It says elongate.
Okay.
Comprising venomous and non-venomous species inhabiting tropical and temperate areas. Then the second definition is a treacherous person, an insidious enemy. Okay, so the serpent could be a snake. So the definition of a serpent, the first definition is a snake. Okay, so at that point, they're interchangeable. Second definition, a wily, treacherous, or malicious person. Then the third definition, the devil, Satan. See Genesis 3, 1-5. I never thought of the serpent as Satan.
So, I mean...
Is he? Well, we don't even know who Satan's mentioned in the Bible at some point, right?
In popular culture, when people discuss that particular section of the Bible, it's always described as Satan tempting Eve.
Oh,
so I did know that.
Of course you did.
I was playing along with you because I know that you hate me bringing like outside knowledge and information into the show. So I played along with you. You also asked that, I forget, you asked a few questions about the serpent that I found funny at the time, and I played along with it.
Yeah. And you described them as a millipede.
So it's funny that we're going back to the serpent
only
now.
because we might get a couple of these flashbacks as I go through these episodes and build up the website.
Right. So basically, in my understanding, the serpent was a snake. Physically, it was
described it as a millipede.
It was
like
a python kind of.
Yeah, python.
That was controlled by the devil.
Oh, now it's just a python puppet. All right, listen. I don't want to dive back into it. I just didn't know anybody considered that Satan, but
right,
controlled by the devil.
But I also wonder, like, there were many, many, many texts that were written, and the Bible is only an amalgamation of a certain amount of them. So there might be like all this canon out there that we are not familiar with.
Yeah, we're going to get to that.
Well, I guess it's not canon. I guess the Bible is canon and the other ones are non-canonical.
They might be canon. There's plenty of...
So that's the thing. So a lot of different sects of Christianity include other parts of like those books into the Bible. So like the Eastern Orthodox might have a book or two added into their Bible that Roman Catholics don't. And that's where like their differences stem from.
It's like Captain's Log supplemental.
Yeah, well, no, it's not anything like Captain's Log supplemental.
All right, let's get into Exodus 9 to 12, man.
All right, so this is episode 14, and we're covering Exodus 9 through 12, and we're starting off after there were 4 plagues.
Yeah.
Do you remember what they were, Scott?
They were
River of Blood,
frogs,
gnats, and
flies.
Very good, Scott. You remembered them.
Yes.
So even after all those plagues, 3 of which were replicated by Egyptian magicians.
Yeah.
Remember that? The Jerky Boys, the Egyptian magician?
No.
You don't remember that phony phone call?
The Egyptian magician. Yes.
The Egyptian magician. All right. Go listen to, go on YouTube. I'm sure it's there. Jerky Boys, phony phone call, Egyptian magician. I don't know if it still holds up. I don't know. Like we might be in a post, like, is that the one when he
goes, I'm gonna go get my tools and crack your fucking head in? No, that's probably not that one.
I forgot.
That was the mechanic.
All right. So
the Jerky Boys.
There's been 4 plagues because Moses wants Pharaoh to release the Israelites, and God is hardening the heart of Pharaoh so that he won't release the Israelites, so that God can inflict these plagues upon the Egyptians.
Yeah.
So there's been 4 plagues. Exodus 9 opens with the 5th plague, livestock deceased.
Yeah. So Moses is instructed to go to Pharaoh and say, let my people go. And if you don't, the horses, the donkeys, the camels, the herds, the flocks are all going to get sick and die. Pestilence, it's called. He said pestilence?
So like animals that you use for meat, animals that you use for clothing, animals that you use to work in the fields, like all of these animals are going to die.
Yeah, what's pestilence mean?
Like a disease, I think.
All right. It'll be in the vocabulary list.
All right. You'll fact check. By the way, we've added a fact check to our website.
No, we haven't. We've added the discussion.
Oh, okay.
Adding it to the website.
I think we should, because I say.
Oh, I did one.
I say a lot of shit on the show.
I didn't. You had mentioned in episode 2 or episode 1 about humanity being Homo sapiens being on the planet for around 200,000 years.
Yeah.
And ding, ding, ding. That's correct.
No, nice.
I mean, according to Wikipedia,
right?
That will be our fact check.
We all know it's only people have been around for 5,000 years.
Yeah, but yeah. All right, so tomorrow they're all going to be dead. All the animals are going to be dead, and Pharaoh goes, whatever.
Yeah, he's not impressed. He doesn't care. He's still not letting the Israelites go.
Yeah, so here we go. Let's have another plague.
So that gets us to the 6th plague, boils. So Moses is told by God, go to the kiln. By the way, he doesn't even specify, like, he says the kiln.
Like it's
like there's one central kiln, like, so go to the kiln and get like soot from it.
Wait, maybe he was talking to him like in Moses' spot, and Moses had a kiln. So maybe go to the kiln.
All right. All right, acceptable.
Because if there was a kiln there and he goes, go to a kiln, okay. Moses would have interrupted and go, you mean that one right there?
All right, so, but here's the thing. So Moses has to go to the kiln with the purpose of gathering up the soot, throwing up the soot into the air, And then like everything that the soot touches is going to get like these painful, terrible boils.
Yeah, and he said the soot's going to go up and become a fine dust, and it's going to get everywhere in Egypt.
Okay, so that's the thing. How much soot was there?
It's like glitter, man. You don't need much. It just goes everywhere.
For all of Egypt.
Yeah, everywhere you find that.
All right. So, weird. I mean, it's weird. Like, why the soot? Why God would have to do that? Why couldn't he just inflict boils upon the Egyptians?
Because it's got to be the show, the hands.
It's the show, right?
Show. And,
Scott. That's weird because I wanted to say God, and for some reason I said Scott. Do I think of you as a god?
Not based on the things you said.
Good point. So
you just be overcompensating.
God wants, like, he's auditioning for a Las Vegas residency. You know, he's like, look at all of these tricks I could do, man.
That's good because we come to that too. Like,
yeah, he wants to demonstrate like his like powers.
They mentioned the Egyptian magicians couldn't stand before, like, weather this because they were in so much pain from the boils too. So apparently, like, they've been still throwing the magicians up, trying.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, but I mean, the Pharaoh is a cynical guy, right? Like, he doesn't trust Moses and Aaron. He's like, these are just tricks that even my magicians can perform.
Even though they haven't been able to replicate the last couple.
Right.
So he doesn't let them go.
But the problem is, according to Exodus 9, verse 12, but the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he would not listen to them, just as the Lord had spoken to Moses. So, the Lord, God, Yahweh, he is creating the situation, right? Because any reasonable human, he's almost like Bill Cosby drugging women,
Spanish Fly, that was a drop in episode 2.
Yeah. He is basically giving Pharaoh Spanish Fly in order for Pharaoh to not do what the reasonable thing is and just let the Israelites go, because there have been so many plagues inflicted now and so much damage has been done to Egypt. Any normal ruler, at this point would release the Israelites, seeing like what God has wrought. But God doesn't want that. God wants to go through all of these like plagues. He's set it up. He's ramped up to deliver on all of them.
Yeah, it's like, listen, we're invading Ukraine. No matter what you do, like this is my plan. So, while you were talking, I had a lot of time to think and not interrupt.
It's interesting that you bring up Ukraine.
I'm sorry, you're interrupting me?
I am. It's interesting that you bring up Ukraine because I'm going to, later on, I was talking to my wife. Her name's Amy. I'm going to start saying Amy. I was talking to Amy, and I made a Putin reference, how the Pharaoh is very similar to Putin. And when we get to that part, I'll discuss. So I'm sorry.
So no, that's fine. That's fine.
I say I'm sorry when I interrupt, by the way.
Yeah. All right. You don't really mean it though, do you?
I'm being polite. What's the difference if I mean it?
Yes, you're right. You're right. So as you were talking, I was thinking.
Really?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Oh, so you weren't listening. You were just waiting to speak. You were thinking about, like,
it wasn't,
what am I going to say?
On.
Okay, you're right.
No, you would change. I was listening because I was changing my theory a couple of times. I was thinking.
You're saying I was convincing you of
no,
things?
It's just. I'm just saying. I think when people told this story, this was revised. Because when you're telling the story of the plagues, somebody said, what ruler in their right mind would let his people go through all these plagues? So they had to come up with an answer. So they said, oh, God hardened his heart. That's why.
Right.
Like,
so you think that the Pharaoh was indeed a lunatic that, like, wasn't letting the Israelites go?
No. I think the story's a bullshit. There was no Pharaoh not letting them go. Or these plagues, these magical, miraculous acts didn't actually happen.
Right.
They add these stories because special effects to get the audience going.
Well,
like the true story is probably really boring, so they made up this story, and then someone said, "Well, you got a plot hole here, buddy. What human being would not let them go with all this crap?" So they made up the whole. God made him harden his heart.
Right. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Every, like, civilization has to have, like, a great origin story, and they have to create a mythology.
Yeah.
Sure.
That brings us to the next
So
plague.
wait, so I'm sorry. So this is episode 14. You're saying that it's taken you 14 episodes. It's taken you the book of Genesis, and it's taken you to the second book, chapter 9, to say, wait a second. I don't think any of this is real.
I want to interrupt you so many times. Like when I know you're about to insult me, yes, I want to interrupt you. It's funny you say, I spelled Israel wrong my whole life. I always spelled it is real.
Mm-hmm.
It's not spelled that way.
So here's a good mnemonic device that you can use to remember how to say it.
I'll never have to do that again.
Never?
No, because I know I made a mistake for almost 50 years.
E-L-L.
E-L.
E-L. So like Micah, L, Ange, L. Ange, L, E-L. So L is like significant to angels somehow, like in their names.
Yeah, this is really helpful. This is real I before E except after C.
Just think of angel. Angel, how it's spelled. E-L. So whenever you come across that kind of Israel, Micah, L, that's it.
Okay.
All right, I'll edit that out.
No, by all means.
I'll edit this whole thing out. Thank God it didn't come in the beginning of the episode, right? Then we definitely should just get right into the fucking content, because that was that was painful.
Pharaoh doesn't let them go.
By the way, you're the one that brought up. You see what I mean by you setting me up to fail? Like, you're the one that brought up, I just learned about the spelling. I learned how to spell.
So how about, here, Scott, that's a good job. Pat on the back. No, you got to find a way to make me even better by your teachings.
I don't think people...
Listen, Obi-Wan, keep your shit to yourself, all right? I'll figure it out on my own.
All right, let us know if you're tuning in for me to pat Scott on the back and be supportive of him, or if you're tuning in to listen to me rip on him.
I'm going to put some questions up on Spotify.
My algorithm tells me that. All right, so...
The seventh plague, thunder and hail.
Boom. And by the way, it's misleading because it's not so much thunder, right? It's going to turn out to be like fire and hail.
No.
No?
No.
I'm wrong.
Yes, you're wrong.
All right. I'm willing to hear how.
Okay, because the Lord tells Moses to tell Pharaoh, I will send all my plagues against you. I could have wiped you out. This is the big part. I could have wiped you out, but I let you live to show you my power. Right. And that my name will be spread around the globe because you're going to be talking about this crap.
And by the way, he didn't just say, like, I could have just done this. He literally says, I could have stretched out my hand. Again, with the hand. The hands, yes. So he's doing this as a display of superiority.
So now I'm wondering, does he have that power? I mean, he obviously has a lot of power. Lots of power. But maybe he can't.
So this is coming back to the all-powerful notion.
Yeah, is he all-powerful? Maybe he has limits.
I'm sorry. So in this particular situation, what are you saying? He can't what?
He can't just either force them to release the Israelites, or he can't actually just physically remove the Egyptians. Like, he doesn't have that power.
He's able to harden the heart of Pharaoh.
He's able to do a lot of stuff. I'm not taking that away from him.
So
I'm just saying maybe there's specific stuff he can't do.
So all right. So let's say that's a possibility. Okay.
I'm just here asking questions.
So sure. So that's... Did God really want to be good? I don't know. I'm just asking.
He wants to be praised. He wants to be feared. He wants to be. Right. He wants people to worship him.
So this is the thing. So is what you're asking a possibility? Is God limited in his power? Yeah. I mean, I guess it's possible, but again, he created everything. It seems like the subtext of everything and the actual text indicate that God could pretty much do whatever he wants. And in this particular case, like, I take him at his word. Like, he is doing all of this on purpose so he can demonstrate his power.
Yeah, it's kind of not cool now.
So look at it in the historical context. In the historical context.
But try doing an end zone dance.
At this point in what? Like Icky Woods?
Yeah, people
the Icky Shuffle?
Yeah, people frown on that shit, but let's go watch God's show.
So this is a competition right now of gods because monotheism isn't really a thing at this time. There's basically one other monotheistic religion. I always mispronounce it. Zoroastrianism. Have you ever heard of that?
Nope.
So that technically is the first monotheistic religion. It started in what is modern day Iran.
Okay.
Iran.
Hey, you pronounce it your way, man.
So that was the predominant first monotheistic religion. So right now, this religion of the Israelites, right? It's not even really a religion yet. It's a belief in one God. It's a belief in the God.
It's a belief because they've seen it. They've seen evidence of it.
Well, yes. And so this book that we're reading, the book meaning the Old Testament, the collection of books, Exodus and Genesis and whatever books that follow, it's a telling of the story done centuries after these supposed events occurred. I mean, I think we can agree these are not actual events that occurred, but it's a telling in order to create the origin story of what will become Judaism. It's a justification for Judaism because every civilization, every society, every religion has to have a justification for its existence.
Sure. So now that you said there was a monotheist religion.
I'm saying within this context, it makes sense that God is all powerful within that context.
Listen, I'm not doubting it. I mean, the stuff he's done is pretty damn amazing.
Right.
So do you think, is it possible when you kept saying God was referring to himself as we and they, maybe he was chilling with the other monotheist God over in Iran?
That's good, maybe.
You know? And if we're accepting that there's still the polytheism going on, there are other gods.
Or maybe God is so think of an amoeba, right? Like a single cell amoeba. They reproduce asexually by dividing, right? So technically, now you have two amoebas, but they're the same amoeba, right? Because they're both made of the same exact genetic material. So maybe that's what God is. Maybe God is an amoeba, and he's split.
He's a split personality. That's what you're saying.
Not a split personality, just genetically the same, but different.
Yeah, it's much more interesting than him chilling with other gods. Yes.
Like Zeus.
That's some good amoeba story right there. So, now let's get to where you were wrong. See, I know why you went into that long conversation, because you want to avoid the fact that you were wrong about something. So Moses raises his staff up to the heavens, and here comes the thunder and the hail and fire.
So there was thunder. Okay.
And I'm assuming fire, they don't say there's lightning.
By the way, of all of the plagues so far, I have to say the least impressive is the thunder part.
Yeah.
It's just, okay.
And the hail.
It's
and the
thunder.
lightning. That's just something you see all the time.
It's really loud. Okay, let's say it's really loud. After the boils and the dead livestock and the river of blood, thunder seems
this had bigger consequences. The hail, at least.
Right.
The hail wiped out pretty much.
And the fire.
Well, I think the fire was just lightning. Well, I guess lightning would split things. I'm assuming.
Well, between the hail taking out massive trees and whatnot, I'm assuming the fire would spread through the fields and the wheat.
Yeah.
All that shit.
If they had just cleaned up the dead leaves on the ground, none of these fucking wildfires would have happened. Just saying.
I mean, this is terrible. And by the way, Pharaoh was warned. Tell people to fucking take shelter.
Yeah.
And tell
all
your slaves and servants
all the phones went off.
To lock up the livestock, get them inside. And people didn't take this seriously.
Some did, some didn't.
Some did, some didn't. Yeah. Yeah, there's always the QAnons.
It's all
fake news. Fake news. Fake news.
Yeah, so when the storm goes bye-bye, Goshen was spared. Goshen, if we remember, that's where all the Hebrews were hanging out. So they were spared. And Pharaoh goes, make it stop and I'll let you go.
Yeah, he's had enough. He's like, holy fucking shit, man.
Yeah.
Like, everything's wrecked. All right, please.
The wheat and spelt were not ruined.
Yeah.
Because they were not in season.
Mm-hmm.
So he still had reserves that were going to come up in the next season.
Mm-hmm.
I got to look up spelt.
I looked it up also.
Of course you did. What is it? What's spelt?
Spelt is basically like an ancient kind of wheat.
So wheat and wheat, huh? Wheat and wheat haven't come up yet?
Well, it's a specific kind of wheat. I forgot what the distinction was.
Non-GMO?
No, that's not it. I forgot what the distinction was, but it's two kinds of wheat, basically.
Yeah, so what does this fool do now when the storm subsides? Does he make good on his promise, Russ?
No, absolutely not.
Of course not.
But that's because his heart is hardened.
So again, I'm not mad at Pharaoh then. It's like his choices are not his.
You cannot be. He is completely being manipulated by God. God's got his big hands inside. It's kind of like Being John Malkovich. You ever see Being John Malkovich?
I haven't.
So it's basically like the desire to be in another person's like skin and control them. So you're not yourself. You're like a puppet master controlling a marionette. And so this is God is being John Malkovich on like Pharaoh, basically.
Do you think Pharaoh is like in any number of sci-fi shows when like an alien entity takes over a human, that human still exists but it's pushed way down and the alien entity has to fight with the human's trying to fight its way back to the surface? So do you think Pharaoh, when he goes, no, I'm not releasing them, go ahead, send another plague, do you think part of them's going, what the fuck am I saying?
I think after everything happens, so we know that eventually the Israelites are going to be set free. They're going to cross the Red Sea. They're going to wander the desert. They're going to do all these things. We know this. I think at that point, after they're gone, and Pharaoh, like everything, the dust settles, and God like leaves Pharaoh alone, he is going to probably have some serious PTSD. Remember when Picard became Borg? Like the mental damage that did to, like the scars that it left on Picard.
That's that Trek Wars show.
So let's not pretend we don't know what I'm talking about. This is what's going to happen to Pharaoh. He's been Borged by God.
Wow. Sleep. Data. Sleep.
I don't know that reference. Scott's always got to go too deep, man. Like, I'm trying to keep it like general knowledge for the audience, you know. Scott's always got to go deep.
So he doesn't let them go.
No.
So time. So the Lord says to Moses, basically, I've made a fool of the Egyptians, which not really nice. And
so you're starting Exodus 10 now.
Yeah. Moving on.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I just wanted to point out we're on Exodus 10.
I'm sorry, I didn't say the 8th plague, locusts.
Okay, so we're on Exodus 10, the 8th plague, locusts.
He's basically like, I made a fool of the Egyptians. Let Pharaoh know if he does not humble himself before you, the locusts are coming tomorrow. All right?
Yeah, by the way, he tells them he's made fools of like everyone in Egypt. Like, I've made fools of like the children, like
when this war is over, you're still gonna have to deal with these people. You might not want to like embarrass them too much. There's no need for that. I've made fools of them. Right, and you controlled, like you made the boss your automaton.
Yeah.
Like you didn't make a fool of anybody. Everybody else is saying, yo, let these people go.
You know what this is like? This is like if I show up to a playground where there's like
creepy
3 6-year-olds playing basketball.
You want to go forward with this?
I'm on playgrounds all the time. I have a son, so I'm on the playground. So we're on the playground. There's like 5 6-year-olds. They're playing basketball. I'm like, yo, can I play too? And they're like, sure. And then I'm like posting them up. I'm like fucking dunking over them. I'm like elbowing them. You know, the game's over, and I'm like, in your fucking face. You know what I mean?
And the refs are just letting you play.
That's what God is. Yeah. God is just like a big fucking bully, and he's letting you know, like, I'm fucking you.
Yeah, it's like when Kramer goes to the karate school, right?
Yes, it's exactly like Kramer fucking those kids up. Except God's not going to get his comeuppance. The way Kramer did.
Well, maybe. The story's not over yet. So the officials kind of turned to Pharaoh and like, yo, dude, man, Egypt's in ruins, man. What are you doing?
let these fucking people go,
Yeah,
man.
this is not worth
This is
whatever's going
crazy.
on. So do you think the buried voice inside him is reaching out and going, I know, I can't help myself. Something's controlling me.
So this is the Putin. This is the Putin analogy. This is probably what's going on with Putin right now. Like, these officials in Egypt, like, they've seen everything destroyed. Like, the fields have been destroyed. You know, the animals have been destroyed. People have probably died from, like, the boils and fucking trying to drink, like, from the river of blood. Well, it's like, it's mass chaos. Putin right now, has almost the entire world has turned against him. Even his allies are probably really fucking annoyed that he's doing what he's doing. You know what I mean? So, like, they might be supporting him low-key, you know, but, like, in reality, they're like,
this motherfucker.
yeah, they're like, they're fed up. The finances of Russia are in fucking ruins. You know, the ruble has tumbled. Like,
the shekel ain't worth shit, right?
It's a catastrophe. You know, there must be people behind the scenes. There must be who are telling him, "What are you doing, man? Stop this."
I just hope those nuke codes are secured.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's gonna happen. I think that's hysteria,
but not hysterical.
No.
Isn't that weird that hysteria and hysterical have come to take on different
Do you know the
meanings?
origin of hysterical?
Let's hear it.
This is great. Hysterical comes from women. Hysterectomy.
Oh, right.
So hysteria. So think about 19th century women. No rights. They can't vote. Like, they're basically property.
Like 2022
Like
Texas.
Yes, not just Texas, by the
Well,
way. Texas might be the best, like, best case scenario if you're down there. Like, let's talk about Mississippi.
No, let's not do that.
Alabama.
Let's not do
All
that.
right. So
I travel far and wide. I don't want to have this.
All right. So imagine being a woman. Some of them were fucking depressed,
Right.
you know, and it came out in many different ways, this depression. They were considered hysterical. So these women, it was considered like depression was called hysteria because it specifically referred to women. I don't know exactly what the root of hysterectomy. I don't know what the root is, but it has to do with female shit. But here's the best part of all of this.
Best part.
This is where the vibrator comes in.
Okay.
The vibrator was invented because they found the best cure for hysteria was clitoral stimulation through, like, the vibrator. So basically giving women orgasms seems to make them happier.
Which no
and
man,
less depressed.
Because men just can't regularly do that job.
Because men didn't fucking care, man. That's probably why all the women, like, geared up, like, in the early 20th century for fucking, what do you call it? Prohibition. Because guys were coming home, like, all, like, whiskey dick, you know what I mean? Like,
whiskey dick. I never heard that term.
You never heard whiskey dick?
That's great.
Yo, man, between, like, the Irish and the German immigrants in New York, like, I forgot how many bars there were in New York. There was like one bar per person in New York at a certain, no, literally, like, it was like one bar per, like, fucking person in New York at one point. And there was just a tremendous amount of drinking going on.
Sure.
So there were probably a lot of unsatisfied women, you know? So anyway, so that is where hysteria comes from. That was the invention of the vibrator, was a medical instrument in order to stimulate women to orgasm in order to cure their hysteria.
Nice.
You can fact check me on this.
I'm totally fact checking you. Hold on. Pornhub.com.
So all the officials are begging Pharaoh, like, you got to let these people go. So Pharaoh finally starts to budge a little bit.
Yep.
He decides to bargain with Moses.
Yeah. He says, you can go, just the men. You're not bringing the children. Because God will surely, if, like, your children are here. It's almost like an insurance policy.
Yes.
Like you're not going to do something crazy.
Yeah.
He actually says something
So
along the lines.
I'm sorry. So before you go on, this is very important. I'm not understanding entirely what they're bargaining for. Does Moses just want to take all the people out, like let's say a mile out of town, to worship?
3 days.
Or are they negotiating like complete like freedom and exile?
I think it got blurred. You're right, because he just wanted to go out and do his his 3-day Bible study or whatever it is, like worship fest.
But at some point, it turned into, it seems like, we want our freedom.
Yeah.
So that's why. So the thing with Pharaoh and keeping the children is keeping the children an insurance policy to make sure that Moses and the people come back, or is keeping the children, all right, you all can go, but we're going to keep the children as like future, like we need a stock of slaves. So you could take like the old men, you could take like the women, blah, blah, blah. But the next generation we keep where we can breed them and continue to have like, you know what I mean? So it matters like which one it is. Is it negotiation for 3 days of like, a prayer festival, or is it for freedom?
Wow. Do you think, and listen, keeping the Israelites as slaves or whatever, not acceptable. That's not what I'm saying here. But is it possible that Moses has been deceitful? Like, we just want to go 3 days out, worship our God. Just let us do that. And Pharaoh knows, no, you're going to bounce on us. Why do you have to take all everything? You're taking everything with you.
Yeah, it's a little convoluted because I feel like there's two things have been mentioned by God.
Yeah.
You will be like set free and go for like a prayer festival. The Lollapalooza of like prayer.
We'll be back. 3 days out, 3 days in.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Well,
it turned into a rally cry for freedom.
So instinctually, that's how I'm reading it. For some reason, I'm reading it as freedom.
I agree. Yes.
Give us free.
America has been turned into a whorehouse where the ideals of your forefathers were done. I don't know.
Oh, I don't remember that.
They had like a little.
That's deep, man. Yeah, sure.
A re-education.
Yes. Where they go to visit the guy's dad.
Yeah. Avenge me! Yeah, that sounds a good one.
That's a lot of pressure on a fucking kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not like get to safety.
Yeah. So the Pharaoh says the men can go worship, but not the little ones, because if you took the little ones, plainly you have some evil purpose in mind. Because because why not leave the kids here?
Right.
So he's on to them that they're looking to escape.
Yeah.
So I think now I see Moses in a different light. I'm not saying his quest for freedom is not a righteous one, but he wasn't honest about it.
Right.
So yeah.
So Pharaoh winds up conceding to let Moses go and pray to the Lord to sweep away the locusts.
No, the locusts haven't come yet. Here come the locusts because there was no deal made. No deal. I'm not leaving without the children. Now the east wind comes in and brings the locusts.
Okay.
Right? Then Pharaoh started begging.
Okay.
Come on. All right, dude, man. You made your point. Get them out of here. So get rid of these locusts. I'll let you go.
So then he lets Moses go and pray, and Moses does.
Yeah.
God sweeps away the he blows them away.
Well, they blew in with the east wind. They blew out with the west wind. Yeah. And I want to bring this up because he blows them into the Red Sea.
Yeah.
And was the sea, like, how did it get that name? And then there was a footnote in there. It said, or Sea of Reeds. Because, the reeds that just pile up in the sea. So it was probably like a pond or something. Maybe it's a big body of water. I don't know how big the Red Sea is.
It's a decent size.
So there must have been a lot of reeds around the shore. So it's amazing.
I'd say it's at least like 120 miles across.
Oh, that's pretty damn big.
From like Egypt to Saudi Arabia. It's like 120 miles.
So they must have been known for the reeds, and over history probably got turned into the Red Sea instead of Sea of Reeds.
Okay.
So, just
that's
interesting.
Good. I'll have to fact check you on that.
Yeah, you can do that. So once all the locusts disappear, guess what he doesn't do?
Yeah, Pharaoh is like, his heart is hard. And that phrase keeps being repeated over and over. His heart is hardened because they're reminding you that God is doing this. Yes. He is hardening the heart of Pharaoh. And that gets us to the 9th plague, darkness.
Yeah, that's a creepy one.
Yeah,
man.
it's weird. At first, I was like, "What's the big fucking deal?" But apparently, it's some biblical motherfucking darkness.
You know, it's not nighttime when you got the moon and the stars, and like it's just dark.
Yeah, like dark.
Like even
you
maybe
can't
torches
see
don't work.
Shit, like
Lanterns don't work.
nothing.
Yeah, it's like pitch black.
Yeah, completely fucking dark for 3 days.
And for all the things that have happened,
So,
that
like,
just shows how crazy darkness is.
So think about it. You can't eat because you don't know where anything is.
Yeah,
Like
you
you don't
fumble
know
around
where
like
like the
Helen
food
Keller.
is or the oven or like.
I mean, I guess maybe that's why it only lasted 3 days, because humans are very adaptable. After 3 days, you know, you start finding where the bathroom is.
Nah, not when God is intervening.
All right.
So after 3 days of intense darkness, Pharaoh basically relents to Moses and tells him, "All right, take everyone. You could take the children too. Like, go do like your thing. You could take the children, but not the herds. Got to leave the herds."
And then Moses says, "Not a hoof shall be left behind. No deal."
Yeah. So Pharaoh is like all fucking annoyed with Moses, and he tells him, "Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And if I ever fucking see you again," like he's like, "Don't ever fucking come back, because the next time I see you, I'm gonna have you killed."
So now I thought, oh yeah, now he's going gangster. And then Moses just turns to him and goes, "Oh, don't worry, I'm never going to see your ass again."
Yeah. Which is weird because they are gonna see each other again.
I do not believe so.
You don't think
I
so?
don't think so.
It seems like they do. The warning of the final plague. Exodus 11. So we're at the warning of the final plague. And God tells... This is a weird part right here.
Yeah. This is a weird.
So God tells Moses that he's going to bring one more plague upon Egypt. And then after this is like, he's like, "This is it, man. Like, this is the big one. Or after this fucking plague, he's absolutely going to let you go."
Yeah.
Not because the plague's so terrible, because I'm going to not harden his heart.
Yeah.
So anyway, so he's like, "Go tell like all the..." All right. Let me read to you the quote from the book, from the Bible, Exodus 11, verse 2. "Tell people that every man is to ask his neighbor, and every woman is to ask her neighbor for objects of silver and gold."
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Here's the thing. He didn't specify tell the Israeli people, which is what it's going to wind up being. Tell
Yeah,
the
I was
Israeli
confused by
people
it too, yeah.
to go to the Egyptian people and ask for silver and gold. He just says tell the people to ask their neighbor. And the thing is, if every neighbor is asking their neighbor for...
I didn't understand
Then,
it.
you know what I mean?
And I
Right.
thought they were all the Israelites were in Goshen, so all their neighbors were Israelites. So it was weird.
Right. So that's weird, but it turns out the intent of the author is to say that God is instructing the Israelites to go to Egyptians
Okay.
and ask for gold and silver.
So do you think the Israelites went over to the Egyptians like, "Yo, let me get some gold, silver, and some clothing"?
Mm-hmm.
And the Egyptians were like, "Why don't you get the fuck out of here? Haven't you done enough?"
No.
And wait, and the Egyptians, the Israelites go, "What'd you say? Moses, come here." And they're like, "All right, here.
So I already read like the rest of this.
Yeah.
So any reasonable Egyptian, if a slave came to their house and was like, "Let me get some silver and gold," like any reasonable Egyptian at that time would just beat down the fucking Israelite. You know what I mean?
But except you just saw the power of them.
But as we're going to find out, God was manipulating the Egyptians.
Right.
Like he
Manipulation.
sprinkled his fairy dust on them, and they fell in love with the first Israeli that they saw and just gave them all their like gold and silver.
They fell into favor. They were seen with favor.
Yeah. So God instructs them to do this. So here's the part where it seems like Moses did indeed go back to Pharaoh. So in Exodus 11, verse,
You're right.
verse 4, Moses said, "Thus says the Lord, about midnight I will go out through Egypt, Every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die. So he's giving this monologue, which we'll discuss, about what's going to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's giving this monologue to Pharaoh. He's talking to Pharaoh right now.
And he was angry. Like Moses, I think, was chill this whole time, but now Moses is actually angry.
Yeah, well, the shit that he's talking about,
there's a lesson here, man.
what's he telling? He's telling Pharaoh that basically every newborn in Egypt
Every firstborn.
will be killed.
Every firstborn.
Every firstborn in the land
So
of
they could
Egypt
be
shall die.
newborns to 80 years old. If they're the firstborn, they're dead.
From the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne to the firstborn of the female slave who is behind the handmill and all the firstborn of the livestock.
Crazy. So this is a mass murder.
So
event.
all the firstborn, right.
There's a lot of crisis actors they're hiring.
God
for this
must
one.
have forgot how to activate like the rainbow, God forgot about the rainbow.
Oh, yeah. So now, here's where Pharaoh showed his ultimate weakness. You promised the dude, you come back, I'm going to kill you. The dude came back and says, I'm coming back at midnight to kill a whole lot of you.
Right.
Pharaoh should have struck him down right there, because how much worse could it have gotten?
Yeah. It's like you don't pull out a gun unless you intend to fucking fire it. Like you don't pull out a gun just for show. I'm not saying you should fire it, but I'm saying if you're willing to pull out a gun, you got to be willing to use it. You can't just pull out a gun for like show. And Pharaoh, when he told fucking Moses, don't ever come back here, had to mean that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And it seems like he didn't mean that.
Yeah. And what do you have to lose at this point? Everything Moses has said that was going to come has come.
Everything's happened.
So he's coming at midnight. He's fucking you up at midnight. Yeah. Take him out. Take him out, Pharaoh. You're showing your weakness.
It's crazy.
Or did God make him weak at that moment too?
Yeah. So basically, Moses tells Pharaoh, yo, man, all these fucking firstborns are about to be killed.
And he mentions that, God has a distinction between Israelites and Egyptians.
Yeah. So
and,
they're not gonna, like, nothing's gonna happen to them.
And he basically says, your officials are gonna bow down before me. And
Yeah.
he storms out pissed. Yeah.
Okay.
And Pharaoh still doesn't let him go.
Well, his heart is hardened. Because God, this is what God is setting it up for. This is what God wants. This is the end game.
What God wants, God gets. God help us all.
What if God was one of us? Just the slob.
Just trying to get home on the bus, man.
So this gets us to Exodus 12, and I got to tell you right now. I don't know how smooth this section is going to go, because my notes are so dense on this, because there's a lot of...
Does that mean you're going to be reading a lot of the verses?
God's OCD coming back in this. Like, remember how he was instructing Noah about building the ark, and he was super specific?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was nothing in comparison to how he's going to instruct the Israelites about. Like, this is like all of these rituals, you know what I mean? Like, make sure you flip the fucking on-off switch 5 times before you open the door, but turn the doorknob 3 times to the left first. It's like all of these instructions.
It's like the he starts giving out the cheat codes for like how to beat Glass Joe or
Mortal Kombat or something, right? Finish him.
That brings us to...
and we are in a finish him situation.
Yeah. Exodus 12, the first Passover instituted.
Passover in the house.
I want to point out, by the way, that Rusty came over and gave me a gift. He gave me a Russell Stover solid chocolate cross.
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. That was thoughtful.
Yeah, I mean,
where'd you get it, by the way?
Amy got it at like a pharmacy. She went Easter candy shopping.
So people getting pharmacy gifts, huh? We talked about the pharmacy gifts. Man.
It's candy. It's Easter candy.
Yeah. All right. So the Lord says to Moses, "This month shall mark for you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year for you."
See, here's what's stupid. The Jewish people celebrate New Year on Rosh Hashanah, which is in September. So the New Year starts in September, but Passover is in April. Passover and Easter are at about the same time.
I wonder if we would discovering the start of the Jewish calendar.
It doesn't make sense to me. If this is the first month, why is Rosh Hashanah in September every year?
Huh.
So I don't know.
Wait a minute. Maybe no, because he does say, "Tell the Israelites the 10th of this month."
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking maybe there was some time between him declaring that and Passover starting.
But it didn't make sense to me.
Listen.
Yeah.
Continuity errors happen.
So then he gives these detailed and specific instructions. You want to tell us about some of them?
Sure, as I reach for this solid chocolate crust that you gave me.
Are you going to start eating now? We already went through the pretzel thing.
We did. But I'm a little hungry, man. Wine and some chocolate.
Come on, we're on the last fucking section.
Fine. Yeah, so tell the Israelites the 10th of this month. Take a lamb for each family household. Small households can join near their nearest neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what constitutes like worthy of your own lamb. I guess one lamb per person would be ridiculous.
Like whatever you would normally like.
Do you think when he said it, like Old Man Johnson next door that nobody likes, they came out and started measuring, the two neighbors on either side started measuring like how many cubits away he was? So like who got stuck with him? Because he's by himself and he's a fucking lunatic. But he has to eat with somebody, according to this. And you don't want to be the guy closest to him.
Why? What does God say specifically that he has to eat with someone?
If your household is too small for its own lamb, join your nearest neighbor.
Oh, right. Because they have to divide it proportionally.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. And then he says, your lamb shall be a...
By the way, that's right. You know, God is that dickhead teacher who assigns a group project... but doesn't create their own groups. And then it turns into like a whole pecking order in the class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like there are people who wind up being left out because they're not like in a clique in the class already.
They have self-esteem
or they're
issues
like
as it is.
outcasts, right? Yeah. They're introverts. Yeah. You know what I mean? So God's that asshole teacher. He's like, I'm going to create a group project and it's up to you to find your own fucking group. Yeah. If you want to live.
Who wants the kid wearing the trench coat? Right? Nobody. Right? Which is a problem of its own.
There's that one kid that wanted the kid in the trench coat.
Yeah, the other guy.
They always find themselves. Yeah, they find each other.
Fucking assholes. By assholes, I don't mean the kids. I mean the people that around that didn't catch the warning signs.
All right. So
your lamb shall be a year-old goat or sheep, male, without blemish. So is a lamb a baby goat and a baby sheep?
I don't know. I thought a baby goat was a kid.
Yeah. So it's like if Costco's out of lambs, you can get a kid.
Listen, the writers of this aren't sophisticated. They're not scientists. They're not using like the genus.
They could have been used interchangeably back then. Just modern vernacular. It's not interchangeable.
Sure.
All right. So you're going to keep it for 3 or 4 days. On the 14th day, all Israelites shall slaughter their lamb at twilight.
Mm-hmm.
Sundown, I guess, right after sundown. You're going to take the blood, and you're going to put it on the doorpost and the lintel.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the lintel is...
I looked up the lintel.
Is it the piece between the two posts?
Yeah, the lintel is the top part between the posts.
Gotcha. All right, that's a vocabulary word. And you're going to eat that same lamb that same night, and it's got to be cooked in a specific way.
Yeah.
Can't be boiled, can't be raw. It's got to be roasted over a fire and served with bitter herbs. And
bitter herbs, like it can't be. Yeah, like what the fuck, shit, man? Like, it's got to taste like shit.
Do you think he's got a brother in the bitter herb industry?
It's more like a brother-in-law, like his sister married like a fucking loser. He's got to support. He's like, I got to get him something just for my sister.
Becky, we told you about Ronald. Come on, just do this for him. He's struggling. He means well. His heart's in the right place.
He's been importing and exporting bitter herbs.
Yeah.
His business hasn't been successful.
They said you have to finish you have to finish your plate, clean your plate off before morning. But then he says, if you don't clean your plate off, you can just burn what's left.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that comes from the whole, my whole childhood was like, finish your plate, clean your plate. And now I see those Noom commercials for the psychology of weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that's been damaging to people their whole lives. Like, you were told to clean your plate.
Yeah. It's amazing to me how ingrained certain things are in our
Finishing your plate
culture,
comes from the Bible.
and like we don't know. Yeah, like
That's gonna go. That's gonna be in the Revelations section of the website when I get to it.
all right.
So yeah. So eat it with your loins girded.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? We determined loins is your center section.
So here's what it means. Be steely. Be brave. Like,
I know what it means.
Eat
but
it.
What is?
Eat it, and be prepared for like action.
The only other time, the first time I remember hearing "gird up your loins" was in Major League when the guy that drank Joe Boo's whiskey,
Yeah.
like decided to give a prayer before the
That
before
like
the game.
racist, like Southern, like old guy.
Oh, there was no indication that he was racist.
I mean, that was the subtext of his character.
I think you're reading more into it than the writers.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this. When a guy comes on screen and he talks like this, I mean, as a Northerner, maybe unfairly, I'm conditioned to think fucking racist.
Yeah, I didn't really get that from him, but I liked how the whole sprinkler system opened up on him.
It's amazing. Scott has completely different thoughts off air than he has on air.
That is not true.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so eat it with your loins girded, so I guess you're being steely. Sandals on your feet.
Mm-hmm.
Staff in hand. Now, what did he mean by that?
Yeah, why does everyone...
Because this dinner could be real awkward.
Well, yeah, I mean, I know Moses has a staff. Does everyone have to have a staff?
That's what I'm wondering, if they think staff means like a wooden staff or like
Your staff.
Uncle Johnny's holding it, like holding his...
It's basically like in the Marines, you know, like grab your balls, we're going in. You think it's like one of those things?
I don't think I've ever heard that from a Marine or in any movie about Marines.
The movies I watch with Marines, there's a lot of ball grabbing.
Oh, boy. Keep your staff in hand and eat hurriedly. Okay, so really, what does everybody have a staff?
And why do you have to hold the staff while you're eating?
Makes it uncomfortable. Makes it like
You're girding your loins.
And you got to do it quickly. So wouldn't two hands be more appropriate? Like just to shovel that shit in your mouth.
You're eating bitter, burnt sheep while you're holding a staff and girding your loins.
And eat hurriedly. Do you think
quickly? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that's the like? If this was today, he would like go to a fast food restaurant down by the beach. Get your tube steaks all lined up and eat them as fast as you can, and let's see who can eat them the fastest.
This is the first Nathan's. Like
the first Nathan's.
God's like amusing himself.
Yeah,
He's like,
yeah.
There's like bets going on behind the scenes. You know what I think? So now that we're having this conversation, here's the reasonable explanation, or my theory. This ain't a pleasure dinner. Like, I want you to understand how fucking solemn this dinner is, because you're going to remember it for, like, forever as a people. Like, you know, this is something that's going to bond. One of the things that's going to bond you as people for the rest of time. So this meal is a sacred meal, and so there has to be a ritual in order to make it sacred and solemn.
It's like, where were you in the Titanic? You got news of the Titanic, yeah.
Right. So I think that's the reasonable explanation, right? Like, he wants to make it very specific and a process so that they understand this ain't no pleasure cruise.
Or maybe he's giving this information late, and like Doom is coming at midnight, and he's only telling them like 11:50.
Yo, man, I forgot, man.
You gotta do this, man.
I was gonna set the timer for an hour, but I fucking accidentally did it for 15 minutes. You gotta get a move on.
Yeah. Get the blood. Yeah.
I mean, it would fall in line with everything else, like God, like hearing the screams of the shit, man, I forgot. Yeah. Fucking God, man. God damn.
Like, put the Xbox down for a minute, man. Like, there's lives at stake. All right, so he mentions that you're going to be doing this pretty much every year for generations, probably until, all eternity. You're going to celebrate it as a festival. And during those 7 days, it's going to be a 7-day festival?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? He says, I'll execute judgments. He meant he's going to come at midnight and kill So for 7 days you'll eat unleavened bread.
Mm-hmm.
Remove the leaven from your house.
Mm-hmm.
So leaven is
leavened bread.
So is leaven an actual ingredient that makes the bread rise? Is that what that is?
Yeast.
Is that what leaven is?
Well,
Okay.
no. Leaven is not the yeast. Leaven is the type of bread. So unleavened is a type of bread. So like a tortilla or matzah is unleavened bread.
Oh, so he's saying
it hasn't risen yet.
so he's saying if you already have risen bread, get it out of the house.
Correct.
For the 7 days.
Yes.
Okay.
He's not a fan of the semolina fucking hero.
So he says the first day will be a solemn assembly.
So again, this is like it's a hurry, you know. We don't have man, we ain't got no time for bread to fucking rise.
We'll get to that. So the first day is going to be a solemn assembly, and he says the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly. Then he said no work shall be done on those days except for the food preparations because you have to survive.
By the way, he also says anyone who eats leavened bread
Yeah,
during like these 7 days, you're gone, man.
it's like hazing, right, for a fraternity.
We're
Like,
basically you're fucking Adam and Eve.
yeah,
You're out.
Wow, you're
You're
hanging out
gone.
with the Egyptians.
Yeah,
You see
no
what I did to
second
that
chances.
place.
Fuck off.
Yeah. So did he mean no work should be done for the 7 days, or just on the 1st and the 7th?
I think the 1st and the 7th are the really like solemn days.
Right, he says
like
that,
that's
but-
when you can't be having no kind of fun. You got to fucking perform these rituals.
But can you do work in the days 2 through 6?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. All right.
No. I want to be clear. I'm not saying I know what the intention was. Me personally, as like a decider, I'm just saying, yeah, you could do work.
What was the intention? That every Yahoo gets an AK-47 because the Second Amendment says so?
By the way, so here's the thing about these rules. In hotels in Israel, actually there was one in the hospital in Manhattan.
There's a hotel
There's
in
a
the hospital in Israel?
So in Israel, in hotels, there's special elevators for Sabbath.
Right.
The same thing in this hospital I was in the city. It's like a specific elevator. You don't have to press a button.
Mm-hmm.
It goes up and down. It stops on every single floor so that if you're in the hospital on the Sabbath, because you're not supposed to like work or do this or that.
I get it.
And yeah, man. I mean, come on. What kind of bullshit fucking loophole is that? You know what I'm saying? It's
I think as we go
you're
further
already on an elevator that's mechanical, that's doing all the fucking work for you. You're telling me pressing the fucking button is what fucking gets you over the edge? Let's be fucking honest about that fucking thing.
There's a lot of loopholes in a lot of this. But I think we're going to get to that.
That's some cognitive dissonance going on right there.
Nice. You've been in therapy to know those words. Like, there's no way you know those words just in passing.
Well, no, it's more about, the people that are around me and having to know.
Yeah, sure.
what
Not
that
because
is.
you need help. So the evening of the 14th day to the evening of the 21st day. So that's, I guess, sundown on the 14th day, sundown on the 21st day. And he repeatedly stresses no leaven, no leaving, no. Yeah. Freaking crazy. So Moses turns.
Maybe God's like, he's got Crohn's disease. He can't have, what's that thing that people can't have now? Everything's
gluten-free.
Gluten-free, right.
Gluten-free, yeah. He's got diverticulitis.
Yeah.
Stuff gets caught in his stuff. So then Moses, I guess, starts telling the Israelites, go get the lambs.
Yeah, he gives them the instructions on how to, like, spread the fucking blood.
He says, use hyssop to dip in the blood and mark the doorways and the posts and the lintel. Did you look up hyssop?
I did.
Okay.
It's basically like a plant. So it's like,
It's like the paintbrush of the
like
day.
a palm, right, like a palm leaf or whatever. Not exactly a palm leaf, but you get the idea.
And then he says, no one leave the house until morning. Because you don't want to be out there, man. You do not want to be out there. The destroyer will not enter your house. Now, Moses said he was going to break out at midnight and kill all the firstborns. So did Moses change form? Because I can't believe Moses would have that. I mean, he's got God on his side. Do you think he was like, choose?
I think God
To the
sends
Egyptians?
like an angel of death.
And he was like, what do you mean choose? We don't understand. He's like, choose the form of the destroyer. And then some guy's like, oh, I get it. Whatever we think of J. Edgar Hoover, we think of J. Edgar Hoover, he's going to come kill us.
So it's like the Stay Puft Man fucking just rampaging through the village.
If you're the second-born child, are you laughing at the sight of a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man killing your brother? You deserve that shit, motherfucker.
Are you the gatekeeper?
The keymaster. So that brings us to the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn.
Death of the firstborn. Yeah. God kills every firstborn.
Well, the destroyer does.
He does it. Well, right. Well,
Wasn't
right.
me.
Whatever
Wasn't
happens,
me. Wasn't me.
he does it, and Pharaoh summons Moses and Aaron and tells them to...
There's a great cry at midnight. They're all dead. Yeah. And he goes, yo, you win. Take your shit and go. And throw a blessing on me on your way out. But if he was not acting at his own accord and God was making him do these things, yeah, he should get blessed. But like, if he was really just being a dick this whole time, like, fuck your blessing.
So, do you remember the second Lord of the Rings movie when that king was under the spell of the evil wizard?
Not really.
The big battle took place like in that like fucking fortress that they had. They built like a special defense. All right. So there's a king. He's got a very powerful people, but he's being controlled by a wizard.
Oh.
And he's making all these terrible decisions. And then Gandalf shows up and he fucking like strikes that wizard out of the guy. And the guy like finally comes to. You know, nice. And he remembers like everything that he's done against his will. It's kind of like, again, like the Picard, you know, when he kills like all of Starfleet, basically.
That was in that Lost
battle.
In Space,
what was the
right?
name of the battle?
Lost in Space.
What was the name of that battle?
Wolf 359.
Wolf 359. So Picard remembers all of that and it tortures him.
It's a shame we all have forgotten that.
And in Lord of the Rings, the king wakes up and he's remembering all of these terrible decisions he's made under the influence of like that fucking evil wizard. And that's what, at this point, Ramses must be like. So Pharaoh, at this point, is no longer under the spell of God because he's going to let them go now. God's completed all of his plagues. And Pharaoh's got to be like, holy fuck, man. Like, if it was up to me, I would have let them go whenever. So, yo, do me a favor. Throw me a blessing on your way out.
So you think you had a side conversation saying, yo, that shit was not all me? Like, you think, yeah, why not?
I think, yeah.
Yo, dude, I am sorry I had no control over that. Yeah, you know, that's fucked up. So the next chapter is the Exodus from Ramses to Succoth.
Yeah, well, the next section.
Oh,
it's
right,
Exodus 12 is
okay.
the chapter.
Gotcha.
So next section.
So now the Egyptians basically tell the Hebrews, yo, you got to get out of here. We're all going to be dead if you don't get out of here. Get out of here. Take the dough before it could be leavened. So they give him the bread before they doesn't have his chance to rise. And then they take the jewelry and the clothing. They plunder the Egyptians, which I feel like someone plundered somebody once before. The two dudes that killed everybody in that city?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, after their sister was raped all the... Right.
Yeah, so wait.
By the way, you also didn't mention... So it gives us an actual timeline, which the Bible never fucking does. It says in Exodus 12, verse 40, the time that the Israelites had lived in Egypt was 430 years.
I didn't get to that yet.
So, I'm sorry.
They plundered the Egyptians, then 600,000 men and plus children left. And then it says... by the way, it says they baked like non-leavened bread because they didn't do it, and they didn't bring any like food. They didn't bring any preparations, like provisions for themselves. Like it was a bad. Like they had a lot of time.
They had a rush.
This. But how long did it take these plagues to happen? Like they knew they were on their way out. They should have packed a bag. Like all of a sudden they have to rush. Like I didn't get it.
So, as
Did you bring the cell phone charger?
As a Jewish
You
person,
were supposed to do that, honey.
as a Jewish person, this kind of like lends into that stereotype of Jews being difficult. You know, it's like, Moishe, make sure you pack our fine linen. And Moishe's like, Ethel, I can't pack. What are you looking at me like that for?
Because I'm old enough where I understand a lot of different stereotypes, and I never heard the stereotype of Jews being difficult.
Pushy.
Okay, but not difficult. I don't know.
That's like,
like
difficult,
the word I didn't get.
pushy. Oh, well, as a Jew, I've heard all the stereotypes.
You're difficult.
So this is just perpetuating that stereotype. Like, they left unprepared. But you know
Very
what?
unprepared.
But I got to tell you, it's all right, because when the fucking Jamestown settlers came to Jamestown from England, they were absolutely not fucking prepared to do
fine.
fucking
Listen,
anything.
Just
you know
because
what?
another group of people were idiots does not give these people a pass.
Wasps,
we don't pass
so
over
wasps
these people.
aren't so fucking great themselves, all right,
Right.
Scott?
Nobody's attacking you. I'm just saying these
Fucking
people had plenty of
wasp.
time to prepare. Do you think it's because
It's because.
was
That's what you said. You said it's because.
you think it's because
Because.
while they were watching Egypt get destroyed by all these plagues, they were living in the circle of light in Goshen, and they felt they were privileged. Like, nothing bad's going to happen to us. So we're just going to leave without any food, and somehow we're going to figure it out on the way.
There had to be like a tremendous amount of like fear and cynicism about what their outcome was going to be. They've been enslaved for what, 430 years. The history of the Israelites isn't like the best history, so there's always like that sense of like doom and dread. You don't want to get too happy. You know what I mean?
I get it. You want to temper your expectations so you're not disappointed too much. So 600,000 men and children. They don't mention women, so I got to think this is considerably more. It's probably by like 1 million people, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be more women than men, because genetically there's more women than men.
I'm not following you. What do you mean genetically?
In the world, there's slightly more women.
Now. But back then, they didn't treat women very well.
Back then, I bet you it was more women, because men were fucking like dying in wars, and like men would, you know.
Yeah, but they you remember we talked about? Like if the firstborn wasn't a woman, it wasn't a man, a male, like that baby disappeared. Like, I think the odds are not so good. Like, I think there's much more men than women at this point in history.
But we're talking about specifically Israelites who were not affected by God's plague.
Okay, all right. Good enough.
I mean, you can fact check. Check if I'm right.
I don't think there's any like real facts based.
You
on
don't
this
think we
time
can
period.
find like statistics throughout history of the male to
Dude,
female
you
ratio?
You have shouldered the huge burden of producing this webpage, podcast, and you can add that to your list. Research that. Yeah.
Well, it's not even going to be research. It's probably going to be me looking it up so I can text it to Scott to like shove it in his face and be like, see, I told you I was fucking right.
Yeah. So God says this is going to be a vigil. This is going to be a yearly thing. Like this is going to be represented. This I guess is going to be Passover, right? Which brings us to directions for the Passover. Was that actually a title? I usually highlight when it's a title.
I don't think it's a title. I think the last part of Exodus 12, the last section, was the Exodus from Ramses to Succoth, which is about 120 miles, by the way.
So you want me to start, which is a long walk for 1 million people, like with their sandals and their staves.
Oh, no. You're right. There is a section. I'm sorry. There is a section. My bad.
Okay. It's basically
it is called Directions for Passover.
So, should I start reading them?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. No foreigner shall eat of it, and by foreigner that means not a non-Hebrew, because there's no land claims.
So when you're like having your meal and doing your like rituals, you can't have someone who's not an Israelite.
At first I got mad at that, but then I was like, no. Every club is like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're not a club member.
Right.
There's parties for the non-members. There's parties for the members.
Well, and again, if you are a foreigner, there's a way to get into this gang.
Yeah.
So you don't get jumped in. You don't have to go commit a crime. This one is much simpler.
Yeah.
You got to get circumcised.
Right.
Right? If you're circumcised, you can go from foreigner to Israelite and have like the feast.
Yeah. So the next rule is purchased slaves can partake if they're circumcised.
Right.
No bound or hired servant can participate. Which led me to believe, like, what if you were a Hebrew and you had a Hebrew servant who they couldn't participate, or no Hebrews were servants?
No bound or hired servant.
So I guess that's like an indentured servant, somebody who has a contract, or somebody you hired is not allowed to participate.
So this is weird.
So the help is not allowed to sit.
So no bound or hired servant means all the servants, because either you're bound to servitude, you have no choice, right? I'm assuming that's what bound means. You're bound to servitude, or for hire, or you've hired a servant. What other kinds of servants would there be?
Well, the slaves are probably not considered bound servants. They're slaves. They're bound. Maybe there's some sort of contract.
I see. So
they're
there's
working
another
off something.
So okay.
The Irish slaves in America,
like an indentured servitude. Like you're a bound servant.
Actually, when you listen
and
back
then
to
after
this,
a certain amount of time,
use that term, indentured servant.
Okay.
So
makes sense.
The help can enjoy.
Okay.
It shall be eaten in one house, and no taking the animal outside, and you can't break its bones. So let's talk about the one house. I don't know anybody who starts a meal in one house and then carries it over to another house. I don't know. That was a thing. So and then they put something.
Well, it's like the food version of a bar crawl. In like New Orleans, like you buy like a fucking hurricane in this bar, and then you take that shit and you walk through the streets.
I think this was written backwards because they said you can't take.
Yo, let me get those beats, sweetie.
You can't take the animal outside, and I think that was.
Look at my tits.
I think that covered it initially, because
I'm thinking about New Orleans.
Yeah, so you have to go outside with your food to go to the neighbor's house.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't enough because people started living in apartment buildings. So they found a loophole.
That's probably where Tupperware came from, like these like Jewish Passover women were like, how am I going to keep this warm while I'm going to Miriam's house? And so like, necessity is the mother of invention and all that.
Yeah.
And Tupperware came from that and the first Tupperware parties.
And you shall not break its bones.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever broken bones to eat something?
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Let's say you get a whole rotisserie chicken. You got to break some motherfucking bones, man.
So that wishbone thing is not a Hebrew thing, right? Like drawing out the wishbone and making a wish?
I don't know. We haven't gotten to that part of the Bible yet.
And all Israelites will celebrate it.
Yeah.
So is that true? Like all the Hebrews celebrate Passover? That's part of the thing, right? It's like it's a high holiday.
Well, are there really any more Israelites?
What now?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Now they're Jewish people, right?
Okay. All right, maybe.
So this is kind of like proto-Judaism.
Yeah.
So this right here that he's describing, Passover, now that I'm thinking about it, this is really the birth of the religion, right? This is what's
the first ritual?
What's binding Israelites? Circumcision was like the first thing, right?
Yeah.
So circumcision, okay. Now they're establishing like these rituals, that will begin to birth Judaism. So right now they're not even Jews; they're still Israelites.
So maybe in our week absence, we think about and research what constitutes a religion. It's not just faith; it's a series of rituals.
A religion is a written doctrine.
Yeah, sure, okay.
A set of beliefs, a written set of beliefs, and like right.
So it also says aliens that reside with you, and I assume aliens just means non-Hebrew.
Yo, man, not according to the guy on History Channel. Maybe they're being fucking literal. Maybe they're really talking about aliens. Because I saw something freaky, man. I saw a clip where a guy was talking about, all right, you know the Inca. I'm sorry, you know the Mayans.
Not personally.
And you know the Aztec in Mexico.
Yeah.
You've heard of the Olmec? So the Olmec were the original, like, big civilization. They preceded the Mayans and the Aztec. Same region in Mexico.
Pyramids.
So they have they have carvings in stone of these people who are holding like what looks like to be a bag, right? It's very distinct. It looks like a bag, like a shopping bag. They found the same kinds of like markings in Egypt. People like fucking carved in stone, like holding these like little bags, and they found them like in some other places that like...
Listen, every person everywhere holds something. So,
Okay.
like, how many stick figures can you draw that? Like, I'm sure that's...
All right, well,
like, of all the alien evidence...
When I saw
like,
it...
that was weak.
When
that
I
was
saw
weak,
it, it seemed cool. When I saw it, I was like, oh.
That was some weak sauce right there as far as gravying up your alien story. Right. So, aliens that reside with you can draw near to you if circumcised. So, if E.T.
Can draw near
yeah, they
to
said
you?
draw near you.
Okay.
So I guess that means maybe not sit at the big boy table. Maybe you're at the children's table,
Right.
like the alien table,
Right.
but you can at least...
You're outside with the pigs.
Yeah, yeah. And then he really just goes into, like, nobody does it unless they're circumcised. Like, nobody does it. So, and that's where we're going to leave off. And I think we covered a lot of ground here.
So the Israelites are...
They're on the
out
move.
of the land of Egypt.
They're on the move.
Well, it ends. Exodus. What are we doing? 12, verse 50. All the Israelites did just as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. That very day, the Lord brought the Israelites out of the land of Egypt, company by company.
Yeah, we still don't know really what that means, but it's just...
He brought them out of the land of Egypt. So I'm assuming they've crossed the boundary because the title was earlier, from the land of, from Ramses to Succoth, which is about 120 miles. So they're probably beyond, like, the city proper or the state proper.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you now, we're an hour and a half into this, but I still feel like we need to take some time because I want to like reflect on like, did we like this? Like, how do we feel about this? I got to tell you this, I kind of feel a little bit of exhilaration for the Hebrews because finally they paid their dues, and nothing bad's going to happen anymore.
I don't think
they
so.
took care of the bad stuff in history. Like, I think it's all fucking sunshine and rainbows for the Hebrews going forward.
I cannot agree with you more.
Yeah, awesome.
I think moving forward, like, it's all like smooth sailing from here on out. Like, God's like taking care of Ramses. He's provided them with like their first ritual as a group that they can bond over, right? And I'm sure wherever they're going to wind up, people will take to that, and they themselves will want to participate in it. And the Israelites will be welcome with open arms everywhere they go for the rest of time. It seems like that.
Awesome. I have one question, though. Where the fuck are they going? I thought about Three Blind Mice and Andrew Dice Clay. I'm like, where are they going?
I don't know. Let's find out.
All right.
So next time, we're going to start off with Exodus 13 and figure we'll do like three, four, probably four like chapters, right? So that's where we're going to pick it up from next time.
All right. So peace.
All right. Peace out.